Good evening. I will now call to order the Clarke County School Board meeting, April 26, 2021. If you'll stand for a Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Any questions about tonight's agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any questions about the consent agenda?
I'll go ahead and move that we accept that as presented as well.
May I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We quickly just added something to the agenda as a surprise for Dr. Bishop. Hi. We have recognition for you tonight. So in the past, the Virginia Association of School Board Superintendents has recognized 8 regional superintendents of the year. From the 8 selected, one as Virginia Superintendent of the Year. Due to the extraordinary leadership of 133 public school division superintendents during 2020-2021 school year and their roles in serving their communities through the COVID pandemic, VASS is honoring all 133 division superintendents as Virginia Superintendents of the Year. The Clarke County School Board would also like to recognize Superintendent Chuck Bishop for his outstanding leadership during this extremely difficult time. So we have a resolution for you. I know it's nothing fancy, but you can put it in your office. So, thank you. I hope you know how much, I hope we can say our gratitude to you.
Thank you so much.
Every day.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, and we have a little yummy snack basket just for you.
Well, I like snacks. Thank you.
Thank you. I sent Dr. Bishop a text today asking him to wear a suit and not casual clothes because I wanted to take a picture tonight, so we'll do that later this evening. Okay, we have a presentation for Virginia Mathematics Pathways Initiative. Amy Summers, our math curriculum specialist, will present information related to the Virginia Mathematics Pathways Initiative. Ms. Summer?
Amy, come on up. So as Amy's coming up, we're very fortunate to have Amy this year. She's with us all the way from Fairbanks, Alaska, and hopefully she'll stay around in Clarke County for a long time. This is not a Clarke County Public Schools or an Amy Summers initiative. It is one that is being led by the Department of Education. And over the last several days, late last week, there was a lot of media chatter about the VMPI and what that means for Virginia students, particularly those students who are accelerated in math. A lot of the conversation has focused on the term equity, and you'll see in the slide presentation that term is used right out of the gate. In terms of equity, we want students to have an equal chance for success, regardless of race, socioeconomic income, etc. This is really a foundational program to make sure that students have the foundation that they need to succeed. Many in education would describe our current math curriculum as a mile wide and an inch deep. And this particular initiative looks to provide more depth in mathematics. So an inch wide and a mile deep. And then it allows students to move in and out of pathways, and I shared with you the infographic a couple of weeks ago in one of my weekly updates. Instead of being locked in or out of an accelerated path that begins as early as 6th grade. It allows for career interest and students to pursue mathematics that is specifically related to a career that they might be interested in one day. So having said all that, I'll turn it over to Amy for the presentation, and then I'm sure there'll be some questions.
Okay. So the first thing is, what is the Virginia Mathematics Pathways Initiative? And so it's referred to as VMPI. It's a joint initiative with the Virginia Department of Education, the State Council of Higher Education for Virginia, and the Virginia Community College System. So it is lots of people. There's lots of stakeholders in this who are working together to create this initiative and define where it's going. What it's doing is it's redefining math pathways for students, because we want to address knowledge, skills, and experiences and attributes in math that we want to make sure that students have. We want to make students successful in college or the workforce. Wherever they go, we want to make sure that they're successful. The demands are different. We want to make sure that students have those skills. And we want to have students be life ready. When you ask employers now what they want students to be able to do, they want them to problem solve. That was a very different skill set than when I first started, when I entered into the careers. It's different. And so that's what VMPI is. And so why do we want to do this? Why these math pathways? And the first is to improve equity in mathematics learning opportunities. And Dr. Bishop said it well. It's really looking at equity in giving all students an opportunity to take a path that's meaningful for them, that gives them, it's something that they want to do, because not every student has to take calculus. I mean, not every student's going to want to take calculus or needs a career that uses calculus in college. In fact, I skipped a little bit ahead, but 72% of our college students do not need to take calculus. So that's big for right now. These kids are on this path to have to say they have to take calculus, and that's not the case. We want to empower students to be active participants in what's now a quantitative world. We're looking at solving problems and not just doing calculations. Encouraging students to see themselves as knowers and doers of math, so that they're knowledgeable, have a confidence that they can solve problems, and we can actually see them engaging in math conversations. We're looking at identifying pathways for future success. And so these pathways do that, because it's really thinking down the road. What are these students going to be able to do or want to do later on, and building the math to get them there. And we talked about not every college major needs calculus. And there's a depth for application of future jobs. That is where the biggest difference is here. It's in the depth. It's in the depth of how we're getting students to do the math. Right now, as Dr. Bishop had said, we're going just an inch deep, and we're teaching them all kinds of content. The difference here is that we're having students really engage in a depth that doesn't just look like, and an example I'm going to give you is area and perimeter. Right now, we're teaching students to say, okay, how do we find the area and the perimeter? Add your sides up, multiply your side lengths to get your area, and then we leave it at that. What we need to do is we need to take those next steps. That depth looks like having students, we give them an area or we give them a perimeter. What are your side lengths? Even further, what if I give you the side lengths? How can you maximize area and perimeter? I mean, we're doing that all the time, and when we're fencing a backyard, or we're designing things. You're in designing homes, and then finally taking it to the final level of depth and going ahead and making that real-world application to life. So the difference is we're taking the learning to those next three places, and not just, can you tell me the area and the perimeter here? Here is, I think you all have this on this is the state's visual on these pathways. So what it's looking like is at K7, there are the foundational concepts. And so we're looking in those foundational, you're really focusing on the foundational skills in K7. And there's not necessarily standards like we're looking at them now, but these learning by concepts. They're grouped together So there's concepts that students are focusing on. And then in 8.12, now we're looking, or sorry, 8.10, we're looking at essential concepts. The research says right now that the math that we need to be successful in life is math that we're learning in middle school. Those are the skills that if we can get, that's why they're essential. We have to have that math. That's what the students are actually using most in college in their careers. It's what you and I use every day in our lives the most of. And then we move on into grades 11 and 12, and this is where the pathways start to come into play. And there's different ways to get these pathways. The calculus option still exists. IB still exists. And availability for statistics, but then students can start to explore careers. If they're interested in being an architect, they can explore with design modules. If they're interested in going into engineering, they can look at a calculus module. If they're looking at going into the military, we're adapting, and we have the freedom as a district to adapt those modules to what students need. So you can see these career clusters, but it gives everyone, this is where the equity comes in, because everyone has an opportunity at this point to be able to take the math that is meaningful for them, that allows them to explore what they want to explore. I mean, and think about the benefit of this too, is that if some students are interested in a career and they get to experience it before they get college and maybe they lose interest in that, or second, a student can take a class inside one of these modules for a half credit and say, wow, I really liked that, and now I'm interested in that. So this is where really that equity is coming in. It's giving everyone an opportunity to learn what they want to learn. Whoops, sorry. Okay, so what's different? Yes, there's no longer the pre-algebra, algebra, geometry, algebra 2 path. But those concepts are still present. What they're doing now is we're looking at concepts. An example that the state is still working on these, but an example I'm going to give you is right now in 5th grade, we teach a student what is a variable and how do I write an expression. In 6th grade, we add in some linear solving 1-step and 2-step equations, and then we get on to slope in 7th grade. Each of those skills in isolation, we haven't built depth. It's like you just start to introduce it. What's happening now is those skills will be grouped together to be able to build an understanding and to be able to build the depth so that all students can really understand and make meaning of those things. So the standards will be there, the concepts will all be there, it's just going to look grouped differently. The depth and content, the example I gave, that's what it's going to look like for all instruction. Really looking at how do we apply these skills to the real world. That's another big difference here, because every concept is going to have that real world application in depth to bring student understanding, and then for students to be able to go and explore and implement in real time. Then we have just the structure, the K7, the 8-10, the focus on building the foundational and the essential concepts. And then the biggest is then we hit those pathways so that students can be taking half and 1 credit courses in 11th and 12th grade. So the timeline is, there was a memo that came out from VDOE the other, I think, Friday. The timeline for now is this year they're working on developing the essential concepts. There's actually a webinar tomorrow on specifically on the essential concepts. Then they're looking at more revisions and then a draft SOL in 2023, or the draft SOL that will be what students are taking they're going to start working on that because in 2023 that SOL will be in place. And then it heads out in 2023 to the Board of Education approval, and then 24-25 will be our crosswalk year. In the crosswalk year, we will be teaching the new content, but using to backfill to make sure that students don't miss something in the content. And then 25-26 is a full implementation year. So here's where we are right now. Here's our path that we can see. We have in grade 5, they're all taking 5th grade math. And then we hit grade 6 and we offer different options. So this is what we look like right now. We reach this point and we take several different pathways. In the end, you know, students are taking IB, calculus on this end of the pathway, and some of them are taking Algebra 2 as the end goal. So in the new pathways, this is what the new potential pathways would look like for us as we transition to this crosswalk year. The biggest change right now is we looked at different options for next year and looking at the data, where our students are. We've had, you know, it's been a crazy year the last year, and students have had different learning opportunities, and not as, you know, some of them haven't been in school as much. And so looking at the data and also knowing where this is going so that we are sure that we're doing the best thing for all students, the recommendation is that next year we will offer 6th grade math. And 6th grade math looks like adding enrichment, adding, you know, of course, differentiation for all students. So that's how we meet all of their needs, is through differentiation. And then they would go on so that eventually they hit this EC8 path in a timely, there's not going to be disruptions for these students. We've also been watching what other districts around us are doing. This is their goal, to get that EC8 so that these students aren't missing the content. So that's where the other districts around us are going as well. There's been lots of conversations back and forth over this. So this is where the recommendation is that we go moving forward. The other grades aren't as highly impacted by this. It's the 6th grade, our next year 6th graders, that are really the most impacted by the new standards. Everyone else sort of clears that crosswalk here with where we are right now. So what does that leave? What do we need to do next? And the first thing is we have to really be thinking about the crosswalk here. We need to be monitoring information from the state. I mean, there's definitely a set of webinars out. I'm watching them, others are watching them. We really need to consider flexibility and grouping of standards to ensure that all of these standards are covered, that the students don't have gaps. And then we really need to think about what might a hybrid, and I'm calling it hybrid because in that crosswalk here, we're teaching old and new standards together. What is that going to look like in 8th, 9th, and 10th grade for EC 8, 9, and 10? A lot of this is going to come with teacher professional development. 1, on the new pathways. 2, what does the depth look like in these new courses? Because this is a new thing for everyone. This depth is a depth like we haven't experienced before. We're really coming at this with a different level of teaching. How are we going to add depth and enrichment as well? Because there's a piece here, we need to enrich for students, which really comes into the differentiation to meet the needs of all learners. So professional development along the lines of differentiation. And how are we meeting the needs of all students through that? We need resources to support the application of the math. Real world projects, real world scenarios, resources that help teachers come up with ideas to add that depth. And then the last is our next steps is looking at community information, question and answer sessions and information sessions. And so the last slide is here, resources. So if you're looking at wanting more information, this is the direct link to the VMPI webpage and then the different recorded sessions. And like I said, I believe tomorrow evening is the EC8 recorded session. So that's all I have. If you have questions.
Amy, would you speak to, we've had some conversations about this cliff that we're going to get to if we don't start to transition at this point. Would you speak to why that's important? And again, for all of our board members and for our families that are listening, we had a couple of emails on Fridays from parents who are beginning to read some information about this online. Current fifth graders are the ones that are first impacted.
Yep. So
And then if you talk just for a minute about that cliff that we've talked about where kids get to a certain point and they could be at a disadvantage if we don't start to make some moves.
So what would happen if we did not have this, if we don't start making this transition now? So if our sixth graders next year, we offer, let's say we offer 7-8 and we offer just a pre-algebra, and what we've done before. What happens is, as they come to the crosswalk here, they aren't clearing that, I'm going to call it the Algebra 1 geometry, Algebra 2 sandwich is what it's referred to. They're not going to clear that. And so then they're going to have gaps in their standards because we're really looking at, that's where the students, they're going to be at the most deficit because they're going to have missed learning, they're going to have repeated learning. By doing this way, by just sixth grade, enriching, adding depth, we're going to really begin to avoid that collision when it gets to that point, and we're really just servicing our students better because we're not going to, it's going to be all over the place for them, and they're not going to get cleared through by the time they're going to have to start taking in 2024, 25. My eyes aren't the greatest. So they, in the crosswalk here, they would be in 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th grade. And so there would just, some of them, if we offered other options, they would be at the geometry point there. And then what? They're going to have missed some algebra skills because they'll have been put into other places within these concepts. And so that's going to be super challenging. So the best thing right now is to not plan ahead, and it's only a few years off, and to really give them that depth now, specifically looking at, what the data is showing us right now.
We know that we've had students for the last 13 months. Let me say it this way. When we return to school in August, we will have students that we have not physically seen, other than through a video, for about 15 months. We know from the data that Amy pours through and our schools pour through that students have some significant learning gaps, stands to reason, after the last 13 months. So it makes sense for us to begin to move in this direction. I did attach another document today, and this was done, I think, in the 11th hour by the Department of Ed. What is VMPI? There's a couple of things on there, and I've read this several times today because the first time I read it, I went, ooh, this looks like a bit of a backtrack. But it says down the list of bulleted items, that Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 won't be eliminated. Well, it won't be. It'll be integrated. And where things are appropriate to be taught. We all went through a school, when we went through school, we learned math in silos. Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, this breaks down the silos. When it's appropriate for an Algebra 1 concept to be taught, it's taught. Geometry concept, it'll be taught. It could be in 5th or 6th grade and not 10th grade.
I think you'll see a lot of shift in these standards. Some will move down and the content's more appropriate at a lower level, and some will move up because it fits more with a higher level standard to build that depth.
So I know there are some questions from our parents out there who have accelerated math students. The differentiation is key, and Amy's already mentioned that during her presentation. One of the three pillars, if you will, of the gifted program, one of the three is product. What does the end product look like for that student? We've talked a lot over the past few years about project-based learning and students having an opportunity to complete some kind of project that they choose or is assigned that makes sense and applies the information. So product is one of the three pillars of a good gifted program, or three ways that things can be differentiated. There will be opportunities for acceleration at the appropriate time. You can see in those last 2 years, junior, senior year, calculus is an option, IB is still an option, AP courses, dual enrollment are all still options. So there will be those opportunities available for students.
How about, if I can ask a question, that I already asked a couple times, and I found it today, I found something that mentioned it, that there is some flexibility as far as your ability to motor through the system?
So in the document that was released today, yes, they're saying that there's flexibility in looking at how we're doing that. It's allowing that flexibility to the districts. I think we're going to learn more about that, as we get closer, what that flexibility looks like. But yes, they're saying that there is flexibility in how we're going to do that.
So the details of that are
The
yet
details,
unclear.
yeah. A lot
But
of
it's a
this is-
general aim. Okay.
That's what, yes, they're saying
This
that
is-
aim is to,
It's still a significant work in progress.
I understand, I understand. I just read that
Yes.
today, and it didn't mention any details, so
yeah,
I understand
I think it was in that VMPI document today, yeah, that's definitely, it was a highlight in that one today.
okay.
Nearly half the states have already made this transition, 23 states. So this is a direction that people are heading toward.
How long ago did they make? Like, is it,
In the last 4 years, 5 years?
Yeah.
okay, so some are already sort of,
Yeah, a lot of states, you're no longer seeing Algebra 1 as an option for a course, or Algebra 2. I mean, they're not options. They're coming up with, they're grouping these together to now look at concepts-based.
And for our students who struggle in math, the same could be said. Differentiation will be key. But this is aimed at building a better foundation in mathematics for students.
Yeah, it's going to give them that extra to really understand it, because you're taking that learning to a level to help them understand it. So I think it benefits both our students who struggle in math, because we're giving them that opportunity to dig deeper and to better understand it. And at the same time, it's benefiting our accelerated students, because they're getting the opportunity to look at application and a higher level, no longer the surface learning, which is really so important. I've worked with so many students, not even necessarily in our district. They've been advanced students, but their level of understanding, they get the math. I mean, but they don't understand the math. Like, they can compute, they can do Algebra 2, geometry, they can do it, but they don't understand it, which is causing them to forget it. And so and these are, I'm talking very accelerated students, honors students. They're just not, and when they get that time to explore in depth, they're going to understand it, and they're going to be able to apply it. And that's going to make all the difference for those kids. And I think about what opportunities that they're able to do, because they're going to be able to apply all of that and not just say, oh, I can forget all of that now.
And another question that's out there for most of our parents in this community is, what happens about college admissions? What does this look like? VDOE is not doing this in a vacuum. SHEV, the State Council for Higher Education, is also involved in this conversation and has a seat at the table, as does the community college system. So it's not the DOE developing a new set of math or new math curricula that will be thrown on our community college system or our colleges and universities in Virginia without them having knowledge of it. They have a seat at the table and they are actively participating. More questions for Amy?
Just before I forget, going back to the states, if some of them have been doing this for 4 years already, are there any studies or is there data to show how successful they are?
There's
maybe
been
how-
some, what they've done is they've grouped them into, and I can't remember how many states it is, but I was reading an article the other day that there's like 8 states that started out, and there's some research tied to that. And then there's the next transition group, I mean, that kind of fell on board. So, and what I was reading, yes, there's some information coming from those states that are showing what they've done and doing some research. But I think in 4 to 5 years, that's still new, because you think about
Right. No, I understand.
even an 8th grader in 4 years hasn't graduated yet, so they
Right.
haven't really finished a whole pathway. But there are some things out there to show what other states have done and how it's working for them.
I do have another question, but I want to give everybody an opportunity. So, questions?
EC stands for Essential Concepts, is that? Okay, good.
Yes.
So I was following that. And then as far as the SOLs go, how does that relate?
So the SOLs will be based on those essential concepts.
So the SOLs will transition.
So in 2023, in the the year, I think it's it's going to be a modified SOL. So that, and in 2024, in the crosswalk year, they'll be taking that same SOL. That it's a modified based on the grade level that the content from the year before. At that point, then the SOL will transition to based on the essential concepts or the advanced concepts, whatever foundational concepts, whatever that is, that it will then transfer into that the year after the crosswalk year when it's in full implementation.
Thanks.
Anything else? Ms. Kerhobert, did you have some questions?
I did, but Dr. Bishop has already asked them, so
Okay.
I was just going to ask about what does this change in curriculum, or just the way that it looks, mean for children who are on accelerated math tracks, and should parents be concerned, why or why not? But I feel like you've addressed that. And then the other question was just as importantly, what does the curriculum change mean for children who are not on an accelerated track for math and are on grade level or below grade level? But again, I think that you've answered that. And then I also want you to please reiterate again that this is not a Clarke County initiative.
No, it is not a Clarke County initiative. It is coming, from the state, and as we're getting more information, we're sharing it. But it is the state. Every county or every division in the state that's where they're at with this. So yes, it is not a Clarke County initiative.
Anyone else? Ms.
Are
Ryan?
are the webinars that you're watching, are they open to residents of
Yes.
Virginia?
Yes.
So if you
everyone
want to
can
know
go,
more.
everyone can watch the webinars. I believe they're taking a couple days to upload, but
Okay.
but they're directly from the VMPI webpage. You can find them, and then the recordings are on the state's. The state has a YouTube.
Okay.
It's on that, and they're starting a question and answer, kind of like a question and answer document where you can submit through a Google Doc. You can submit questions.
So, Dr. Bishop, could we possibly get that on our website?
Just wrote it down.
Sure.
One-
Excellent.
And now
Same
that
page.
we've had this meeting and this presentation, if we can send out an email in the next couple of
Yeah.
weeks
Yep.
with these links and the FAQ. Ms. Ryan, did you have anything?
I think most of my questions have been answered. I was just curious if, if there was any idea behind this helping us to compete globally Is there some correlation to how they teach math in other
So there
countries
is,
who
and,
outcompete us?
There is, and actually, this is what they're doing in other countries that we're competing with. And I believe that is in this document right here. I think I read it on the second page. But it is, we're getting students to compete we're making them more competitive with other countries because this is how they're teaching math in other countries. So that's, I don't see it off, but I know it's in this document, so. You see it on the
Okay.
second page? I thought it was
I
on there, I
missed
just
that.
don't see where it was.
Be interesting to watch
Oh,
how
here
it
it is.
develops, but
Yep.
it seems to make a lot of sense.
The foundation of VMPI's integrated mathematics content approach is common in many countries, including countries that are our chief global competitors.
Okay, thanks.
So I guess just a comment I want to make, and is that, I think you mentioned, Dr. Bishop, we've known our math instruction as we've known it, basically when we were kids, when we were in school. So this is definitely reworking and understanding the new concept of how we're going to teach math in schools. And so I would just encourage our parents to understand that. And obviously, if you have questions, I know Dr. Bishop has been responding to some emails, but I would encourage you to maybe watch some of these webinars, have some conversations with your math teachers. I'm hoping this summer you might be available if some parents have questions. But as you've heard, this is something we have to do. We don't really have an opt-out option. Half the country's doing this. And again, this is just understanding that the old way we've been teaching math is no longer, which I personally, I think this is great. It goes sort of with the 5 C's as well. So I think this is I think this will be a really positive change. Any other questions? Nope. Ms. Summer, go, Katie.
I was just going to say, I sure wish that this was around when I was in college and someone would have told me that I did not need to take calculus. My life would have been a lot better.
But you use it every day. Thank you, Ms. Summers. I
You're welcome.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
And more to come. We already have a meeting scheduled with math teachers on May 14th. There has been some previous conversation about this. Even Amy's predecessor had some conversation with our math folks about it. So this is a to be continued conversation.
Superintendent's update.
Yes, several items for this evening. You have the Sodexo Food Service Report for March attached as information. 17 of our high school students have earned credentials from Lord Fairfax Community College for their academic work. Those credentials are listed in one of the attachments. I did withhold the student names for privacy to make sure that we didn't disclose something we shouldn't disclose. Several of our students actually have already earned an associate's degree as they prepare to enter college next year. Our CCHS seniors will have the opportunity to participate in a virtual job fair. That date has changed. We just found out today. It's May 19th instead of the 12th. The flyer that's attached still says the 12th, but it is actually May 19th. We did recently participate in a food service audit related to the Child and Adult Care Food Program. No findings or recommendations, and a copy of that audit letter is attached as information. We also received word last Tuesday, I guess it was, that the USDA has extended its food program for next year. That was set to expire September 30, but now will run through June 30 of 2022. So what that means is all of our students will once again have the opportunity to have a free breakfast or free lunch, regardless of their socioeconomic status. 3 of our high school students will participate in the Health Services Academy this summer at Valley Health. That program was suspended last year during the initial onset of the pandemic. I've already mentioned the USDA has extended the provisions of the food service program for another year. And in January, this is just to reiterate, I've had some questions come up recently. The board adopted a 21-22 calendar that assumed 5 days of in-person learning. It is our intent to have students in school 5 days a week next year. We'll have some more information about that at the May meeting. We continue to see changes. There's another set of changes in the executive order that the governor issued last week that go into effect May 15th. And I know we've had a meeting with Ms. Waring about graduation. Then we spoke on Friday about how those guidelines are changing effective May 15th. So it's going to be one of those things that every few weeks we're going to see things loosen up a little bit more, I think. But we're staying on top of those and communicating about the things that we can control. So that's all I have for this evening.
Any questions for Dr. Bishop?
I'm not sure if you know yet, but do you anticipate continuing to run a virtual program at all next year?
No, we don't anticipate having one. If we have students who are medically fragile for some reason, then we have other ways to do that through homebound instruction, things of that nature. We do have some students who take virtual Virginia classes anyway, and if there are situations that we need to work through individually, we'll do that.
So that would, virtual Virginia would be an option for those students?
Potentially, yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
there are some restrictions and guidelines, particularly with high school coursework. I think it's July 15th is the date that students would have to be enrolled in some of those virtual, but the high school works with the students now, those who take the virtual Virginia courses. So we plan to be 5 days in person next year, if at all possible.
Okay, thanks.
Audience comments. Audience comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Those wishing to speak should fill out a speaker's card and present it to the clerk. Ms. Weir? No one has signed on. Would anybody like to speak? Okay, great. Consideration of policies. The regulation GCBC-CCPS-SB-R was approved by the school board on March 22nd, 2021 for the first reading. It's presented at this meeting for second reading and adoption. Any questions about the policy? May I have a motion?
I move to approve regulation GCBC-CCPS-SB-R for second reading.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? New business consideration of K-5 science textbooks for 2021. Did you want to say anything about this?
This is a typical textbook adoption process. Ms. Rivera led that for us this year and did an outstanding job. And this is the K-5 textbooks. 612 will come to you next month. Yvonne?
Good evening. So earlier this year, we formed a committee of 4 elementary school teachers, 2 from Boyce and 2 from DG Coley, that encompassed obviously grades K through 5. And they took a look at the 5 approved VDOE textbooks for science for grades K through 5. We had an initial meeting where a rubric was given to the teachers. This rubric was a little bit different than in past years because due to the pandemic, obviously online and digital resources are very important, and we wanted to make sure that the textbook that was chosen really reflected the resources that we have and that the children have and would be successful in either downloading them if they didn't have internet access or just being able to actually use them on a Chromebook. So we also took a close look for our SPED population to make sure that this textbook was able to make accommodations, that teachers would be able to make accommodations, and also for our English language learners. So after reviewing them and also having Patrick Houseman also look at the digital aspect as a second pair of eyes, we are recommending that for grades K through 5, the 5 Ponds Press textbook be approved. And I do have copies if you would like to look at them. Any questions?
The materials were available for public review for 30 days.
Yes.
And I think we had one
One parent,
person
yeah.
stop by and take a look at those.
Yes.
Just for those who are listening, the middle and high school resources are available right now and can be seen here at our office from 8 to 4:30,
Yes.
Monday to Friday.
Any additional questions? All right. I'd like a copy, actually, so. Thank you. Oh,
By grade level.
okay, I was like,
That's not one.
They are by grade level, yes.
should we really be approving these? Okay. May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the purchase of K-5 science textbooks and resources from Five Ponds Press.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
School board member comments. Mr. Schutte?
Well, I guess I'll start since we've got our own superintendent of the year here. I've had the greatest in faith in Dr. Bishop since he's come here, and I'm not so sure I like the idea of, 130 place tie for first, because I think he would have finished right up there. So congratulations.
Thank you.
But I think back a year ago and all the work that's been done since then, and I couldn't have done it, so I'm glad you could. Thank you.
Ms. Ryan?
I don't have a lot to say. No, I'm good.
Okay. Mr. Turkel?
Yeah, well, I'll just, echo what Mr. Schutte had to say. Congratulations, Chuck, on your first place in the state. It's so, that certainly comes as no surprise to anyone. And I was thinking about that today too. It really has been a remarkable year of constant change, of always having to readjust, of having to plan and then replan, and then all of a sudden something comes in and you're back to doing it again. So it's just been a treadmill of trying to do the best we can, and I think that that I feel good about how it's worked out, and that there's just so many others that represent the team that have had to do the exact same thing. I mean, the teachers are in the trenches every day, adjusting, adapting. The bus drivers, the athletic staff. I mean, everybody has had a year of remarkable adaptation on the fly, and I think we should hold our heads high in all of that. So I appreciate everyone's efforts. And then tonight, change. Math is changing, and probably overdue. And here we are, but change is difficult, and it's always that way, and it will be that way now. But it's what we have to do to continue to again do the best we can. So now that we're experts at change, we can do some more.
Ms. Kerlbert?
Well, and just to reiterate what everyone else has said, I'm incredibly grateful for all the work and effort and patience with us as a board. And I've said this before to Dr. Bishop, but I'd certainly struggled with decisions along the way this year, and I think that that you've stuck to your word, and you've kept our children and our teachers and staff as safe as possible, and also getting our children back in school, which is essential. And to Mr. Turkel's point, you couldn't have done it without Mr. Catlett and without so many other people, Mr. Trineri, all of our administrators. It's been a huge community effort, and I'm very grateful. And just a couple of side notes. since I have a high schooler, I receive, the high school emails daily, and I was really excited to see that there's a class that you can sign up for employment. And so, looking for a summer job. And I was so excited to see that because, I have a high schooler who's eager to find a job. So that was exciting to see. Just like these small changes of normalcy are so appreciated right now. And also, I'm really excited to see how quickly the tennis courts are coming along. That's exciting for our community as well. And one last thing, I know the path by Cooley caused quite a fuss at the beginning of the year, but it makes me happy to see so many families using it to walk to school in the mornings, even when it's freezing cold. Fitness and wellness is essential to being successful in school and to having a good day and having, good mental health. So I think that those changes that have occurred this year for our school system not only benefit our children, but our entire community. And I'm proud of that. As much as people have complained about the tennis courts being redone or the path, that I'm willing to take the heat on that. So, thank you.
I just have a few things. One is I wanted to acknowledge, I think our girls cross-country team won 3rd in the state.
Awesome.
So that's pretty amazing. So congratulations to them. Also, whether you administrators, principals want to be here, I am happy to see you. So it has been a long time. And I know we thank you all the time, but you're not here to hear it from us directly. So I do want to let you know, thank you to all of you. I know you've worked so hard. I know there have been sleepless nights. I know you're working on the weekends. I feel like thank you's not enough. But in my eyes, you're first place winner too, along with Dr. Bishop. So again, we couldn't have done this without you. So thank you. And to show my appreciation, I'm going to end this meeting early so you can go home. So you're welcome. And then I'll just echo the same sentiment about Dr. Bishop. You and I think have been working for 6 years, I think. That's a long time. Yeah. And I think we've had a great partnership, and this year in particular, I know there were times where we were passionately engaged in conversation, but we made it. And
From different viewpoints.
we made it, and obviously we couldn't have done it without you, without your team. So yes, you are first place winner in our eyes as well. So thank you for all that you have done.
You're welcome. I'll gladly share it with all 132 other superintendents because it hasn't just been in Clarke County that we've had to deal with these issues, and all of you said it, and I want to say it too. Since this started last March, we've divided and conquered this the best we could. And Kathy and the elementary principals were working on the elementary piece, and Debbie and the middle and high school principals, and Rick and I were back and forth, and Pat was on all sides, and Randy Trineri's still up there doing crossing guard duty at the roundabout in the afternoons, bus drivers delivering food on Fridays, IE's doing our virtual learning, pieces of virtual learning, cafeteria staff that hasn't been off. They've been working since the shutdown. So it has been a team effort. One person could not have done this, and one person didn't do it. It's been one of those things that would have been. I had somebody ask me today, let me put it this way. How do you know what success looks like from my position? I was having a meeting with somebody. And I said, really, it's easier to look at the failure. That's easiest to see. People expect success. Mm-hmm. They expect this to work. And just so happens that the components of our school system that this person works on work extremely well. But the failure people always see because we have high expectations for success. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? We have a motion to convene to closed session.
I move to convene in closed session to discuss personnel matters, including appointments, resignations, and retirements pursuant to Code of Virginia 2.2-3711A1. The estimated time required for the closed session is 20 minutes, and action is expected.
Second that?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? We're on. May I have a motion to reconvene into open session?
No, move that we reconvene into open session.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Certification of closed session?
Pursuant to Code Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia, do you certify that to the best of your knowledge during the closed session just concluded, the Clarke County School Board discussed only matters lawfully exempt for the open meeting requirements under Code Section 2.2-3711 of the Code and identified in the motion convening the closed session? Ms. Kerr-Hober,
Aye.
Ms. Ryan,
Aye.
Mr. Schutte,
Aye.
Ms. Sing Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Turkel.
Aye.
May I have a motion on recommended action?
Move that we accept the personnel agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Should I quickly talk about it right now? So Dr. Bishop and I discussed meetings for the summer. So I have a proposal that in May, we cancel the work session. So work session, we're going to cancel work session in May, June, and July. And then for the June meeting, I think the original date was the 28th. Dr. Bishop won't be here. So I would like to schedule it or move it up to June 21st, if that works.
And I won't be here, so for the rest of you guys.
I can be here.
Okay,
Hold on a second.
I just need a quorum. Could be an all-ladies day, Chip.
I will be here.
Yes, that'll be fine. It's the week before that's a problem for me.
Okay. Okay, so canceling May, June, July work sessions. We'll keep August, obviously, based on how things are going. And then move June 21st, and move the June meeting to the 21st.
And you should have a birthday cake ready for me. 'Cause my
When?
birthday's the next day.
June
22nd.
22nd? Okay,
That's right.
we will do that. Thank
Okay,
you for the
you're welcome.
reminder.
But wait a second. It has to be a healthy birthday cake. No
Why?
sugar. No sugar in that thing.
Oh, it will have lots of sugar.
What is the point
She'll
of
run
running?
next morning. Miss Ware, can you make sure that's in the minutes so we all remember? Just kidding,
No
just kidding.
sugar. So-
I'll put it on
So
my
July
phone.
26th stays, is that,
That's right.
okay.
Yep. Okay, I think that's it. I will adjourn our meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you guys see that the last 2 days have been the lowest days of new cases?